This is Jackie. I'll just start off that imagine what you think, what you say, and what you do does matter. And so when words come out, they impact the brain. So they impact, are you going to connect? Are my words going to make you connect to me or disconnect? I would tell the kids, don't run on the deck. All they hear is run on the deck, and they run faster. They walk on the deck. Their brain makes them walk on the deck before they're aware that they're walking. So I'm a professor. I grade papers. If I mark it up in red and tell you everything you're doing wrong, you go into protect mode. But imagine, I don't use a red pen. If I use blue or purple and I tell you what you need to do better and how to improve, so your words are very powerful. You can, and if you think you can't, you can't.
There's something about when you're talking, and this kind of refers more to negative self-talk, but your body, you know, as Jackie was saying, like your mind and your body, they're all connected. And so when you're speaking, let's say you have a negative conversation with yourself, or you say like, oh, I suck at this, or like, oh, I can't do this. Your mind and your body don't know the difference between you joking with yourself and it not. And so you're going to react internally and externally to that negative phrase, regardless if it's the truth or not.
Just to piggyback off of Katie, I agree, because like when you speak negativity or you say something negative, whether you're joking or not, it really can affect your whole mood, your whole everything, your body, your mind.
I mean, as a teacher, when we're talking to our students in the classroom, the words and the choice of words that we use is very important. Jackie had touched base on it with the grading system and with the don't. But ways of spinning things so that way you get your point across. And the words that you choose to use around students have such an impact on their esteem and on their psyche. And just, I don't know how many times I've heard kids call themselves, oh, I'm the bad kid, I'm the trouble kid. And things like, oh, I could be a bitch, I can be this, right? That we have all of those labels, but if you spin it, it's completely different. Like, oh, this person talks too much in class. They're the talkative one. They're the one who are getting in trouble. You're a great communicator, right? You're going to be great at networking, and that's an amazing skill to have. You yell at the teacher all the time. Great. You're going to be an awesome debater. You're going to question everything in life. Those are amazing skills to have. And if we put a negative label on it and we shut it down, you're shutting down amazing things that they can become.
So if we just step back, we're talking about a positive mindset. And you guys get to Google words today. We had to use dictionaries. And I think it's amazing because if you type in the word mindset, you get a page of definitions. And I want you to think of a mindset as the first definition. It's your mental attitude. And you talked about choice, Leen. So a positive mindset is your choice versus a negative. And here's the good news. You don't have to have all the answers. But if you know how to ask a question that opens you up to be in a growth mode, in a learning mode, no matter what you're going through, that's a generative question. So we talked earlier about this thing called AI and inquiry. And if you think about that, it's asking questions that add value the person, value the situation. Appreciation goes up. So a generative question generates excitement and energy and curiosity. Instead of asking questions of who did this wrong and blaming people that put me in a protect mode, a generative question generates curiosity. And if you talk to yourself and you're in, like, you're below the line, you're negative, you could ask yourself, what's happening? What's really going on here? What can I learn from this? What am I responsible for? That's a generative question. I'm very curious to understand why I'm in such a bad place and how do I move above the line to a better place. Teachers, a generative question is, I'm not making assumptions about what I think or labels, but I'm asking, what do you think? What do you wish to happen? Don't tell me what you don't want. Tell me what you do want. Tell me what your wishes are. So a generative question really opens you up. Getting back to, I think, Katie, you talked about the body mindset. It makes all those love hormones, those good, healthy hormones go through your body, and that you're actually sitting up taller. That's a generative question. I actually think so. Generative questions is a new term, just like a positive mindset. And I can type it in the chat box. But if you go to www.conversationsworthhaving.today, we have a free toolkit. So we have a list of generative questions you can use anytime, any place, anywhere. But we also created one for parents, for teenagers, for even for parents, of how to talk to their kids' teachers. So, you've got to practice this. And generative questions put you in a place of strength and what could.
So, when we think about having a positive mindset, we think about generative questions. And Brady was kind of speaking on this a little bit about, as educators and as working with students that YODJ and EYEJ work with. We're working with students that it's very difficult to get into a place to have that positive mindset. It's difficult to be in a space to ask those generative questions. And we have to almost take a step back as to why. So like, why is it so difficult to get into that space? And, these students are, and this is why all of these connections, all these conversations are so connected. These students are dealing with toxic stress. They're dealing with violence. They may be dealing with a lack of support at home. And so there's a lot of blame. We find a lot of our students, having difficulty with self-esteem and taking on things because they have to, and not being able to understand that this is not their fault. And so when they immediately get into a situation, it's much more difficult to have a positive mindset when they've been failed before by things outside of their control. Whether, we talk a lot about trust and mentorship in schools, and a lot of our students at times feel that they don't even have a teacher that is rooting for them. And how can you as a student feel like you want to ask those generative questions and have a positive mindset when all these things outside of your control are not backing you up and are not helping you make the right decision? And so I think it's really important that we, like Jackie said, it's a skill to ask generative questions. But it's difficult when you're living in a neighborhood where there's gunshots happening down the road, or your friend was killed at the block party. Like, how are you supposed to be able as a student to understand the difference and then move forward with, okay, now I'm going to have a positive mindset, And part of it's tricking yourself into it, but part of it is recognizing that you need to be surrounded by other people that are having positive mindset. And that's difficult when your community as a whole is dealing with, oppression and poverty, and like I said, gun violence, and we can keep going on and on.
I would say, so I'll talk about my high school experience. So coming into my freshman year at John Hay Early College, I lived in a really rough neighborhood. So, I'm a very shy person and everything. So on top of me going through what I was going through outside of school, I come in school. So I had this one big presentation. It was really big. It was in my American history class. I really tried. I really prepared. But, I ended up not doing well. I totally failed. Like, it was terrible. So when my teacher said that, I just feel like a failure in life. Like, I was like thinking the worst of the worst. I'm not going to go to college. I don't want to present no more. I don't want to talk in front of nobody. I don't like this class. It was just terrible. And I don't like this school no more. But I talked to my mom. Determine your whole life. Don't let it mess up your mood. Like, just try. Just keep doing good. Do better on the next presentation. And so what I would give what advice I would give to the youth is find somebody that will encourage you to do better and to keep striving for greatness and to never give up, and don't feel like you're a failure just because you're bad at one thing or you're surrounded by negativity or you have these negative thoughts, because you could be the light yourself. And so what I took from my mom when she told me that, I turned into, I guess you could say, the light for my peers, for my friends. When they were down, I was like,
You can see just like the insecurity projected coming across. I mean, it affects their health. You might see students who stop coming to school because they've just been sick. You might see the anxiety, a decrease in energy, I mean, health, heart conditions, right? And those who might have ACEs might stay in this fight or flight mode longer. So that's a lot of wear and tear on your heart. But also, I mean, you see that it creates tension in the environment. So we might project our feelings. We might project that negative energy onto someone, right? If we've been made to feel a certain way for so long, we want to make other people feel that way too. So that might be anger. That might be being the class clown. That might be ways of finding alternatives of getting attention in a different way. But a lot of physical aspects come into play when we see this. It's not always mental, but it gets pushed out into the physical world as well.
I think absolutely in regards to physical impacts, when we talk to our students about, okay, so what are you seeing in your community, in your schools, fighting, where they're fighting and it starts off with this little thing, or it's, something was on social media and it got blown up, and it's like, so why did it get blown up so quickly? Where was that positive mindset? Where were the generative questions? Well, why wasn't it stepped in? And these students it's almost beyond that. It's like, okay, well, we don't even think about that right now. Like, there's so much more going on in our lives, that we don't have time to necessarily take a second, step back. And I think what's important to remember, especially, when these students are turning to violence, and we just had our conversation on exploring violence recently, which was extremely powerful. I think Brady was actually at that one too, but sorry, off track. It definitely comes out physically, and they don't know why, and they don't, and they just, they blame themselves for it. And so I think as educators and as people who work with youth, it's our obligation to kind of address that a lot of what's going on in their life is not their fault, and that they do have control, and that they can make this choice, because in the state that they live in, they don't feel like there's a choice.
I just want to piggyback off of what Katie and what Diamond were saying, where Diamond was talking about, being that light, or finding those vibes. And like, we have this hormone in us called serotonin, and I call it like the happy pill, right? And so, like, I always encourage our students to take the serotonin challenge, right? If you're feeling down, find some way to be happy and pass it on, right? It passes on. It's contagious. So find that vibe and be that vibe for other people, or start that chain reaction. Because when you find something as simple as a high five, fist bump, a dap, whatever it might be, finding that connection. And when Katie was talking about when we get angry, finding a way to respond rather than react, right? So often we get triggered and it's boom, snap, and we're off to the races in our feelings. But that moment to stop, breathe, finding a way to respond to the situation so you reach that outcome of what you actually want is crucial, rather than reacting with your emotions.
So I teach at Lawrence Tech. I teach this principles of management. So every incoming freshman in the business school, they have to learn emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence means, hey, and this is what Brady was talking about, hey, I'm aware of how I feel, my emotions, and I'm aware of, your mom is so wise, Diamond. of your emotion, okay? And now it's like what I saw your mom doing is she's aware of her emotion and your emotions, and she's managing her emotions. And it's hard because her daughter's been hurt and you want to go into protect mode on your daughter, right? But she's managing your emotions as well and putting you back on that path. So what you feel is when you practice emotional intelligence, I hope what your mother did for you, she communicated effectively. She relieved you of stress. She probably empathized. Your mom was 15, I was 15. We remember that. You're overcoming challenges and she's diffusing this negative mindset you have. So emotional intelligence has the ability to create that positive mindset and that optimism that's going to fuel you to get back, because you still have to go back to history tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And, I want you to think about role models. One of my role models, and I'm really enjoying her book, is Michelle Obama. She is just one of the most beautiful, wise. When I read her book, I get a positive mind, a positive vibe, a positive life. So that I just really want to point out that there's so many benefits.
To relay those emotions and have those skills is incredibly powerful for students to understand their control in their life, and their ability to make change and make that choice of how they react. However, of course, building on emotional intelligence and having the time and the space to work on things like that needs to be a space in which is safe and in a space that you can trust the people around you, and that you have the time. Some of our students, they are helping their parents. A lot of our students who do work are giving most of their money, if not all of it, to their parents to help support their siblings, or so they don't necessarily have time to think about, okay, so what's the motivation behind this, or how could I have done this better through social skills. They do it because they have to do it. And so especially when it comes to self-awareness and self-regulation, we recently had a conversation about what's your self-identity, and we made these cool collages of your self-identity board. And when we talked about self-identity, we talked about self-awareness and self-identity. And, self-awareness is something that students, sometimes they go through motions and they react and they don't recognize that they could have been more self-aware because they go into that fight or flight mode. And so I'm sure Brady can speak more on this as well, but it's very difficult for students to be able to have that time to be self-aware when it doesn't feel, like I said, like a choice.
Within the classroom, for our students, emotional intelligence, that's a practice. And sometimes it's not something that you can't just say, all right, get it together next time. It can be a long-term practice. But for a student, at the start of the school year, to every time they get upset to throw something, every time they get upset to storm out of the classroom, every time they get upset to say something back. But then by the end of the year, we're not walking out of the classroom anymore. We're rolling our eyes, but we're still in the classroom, right? They're little steps, and we have to celebrate those little steps, because it might seem small, but in the end, it's a big deal for them to be aware and to have those conversations with our students. Like, even if it's pulling them aside after class, like, I noticed that this kind of upset you. What about what I did really upset you? You might get nothing. You might get the words nothing. Everything's fine, right? But by offering that conversation, you've created that doorway, that pathway for them to say, okay, well, if I'm upset, this is someone I can go talk to. I have that outlet, right? So it's about building that relationship where they feel comfortable to have those conversations, and to kind of work through those things together. Like, I noticed today that when so-and-so said that, you kept it together, which is a very hard thing to do. You kept it together. That's congratulations. like, you have to celebrate those little things when they do them right. Even though it's hard, I'm aware that you're working on this.
Right.
That I just want to say that, like, when we are celebrated, so I'm still working on emotional intelligence myself. Work in progress. But I feel like it makes you feel better as a student, and like even in school, to have somebody to come to, have that teacher, that safe space, to someone to understand your emotions. Because when you have that safe space, you probably will think about, okay, well, if I react this way, my teacher, my favorite teacher, or this person that really cares about me in this atmosphere, they're not gonna be proud of me, so, or they're gonna be disappointed in me. And so I feel like when you have that, that creates us, okay, let's be self-aware. Okay, I'm not gonna storm out the classroom. I'm not gonna cuss a teacher out. I'm not gonna get really upset. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna try my best, and then I'm gonna go talk to this person so they can, give me some advice. They can help me. They can listen to me talk. So I feel like, as time progresses, we make steps, little bit steps. It really helps to have somebody there, especially a teacher. I know.
And as a teacher, I'm still learning to deal with it, right? Because I'm not just dealing with one student. I have 82 students circulating, right? So what someone said, like, middle school kids can still make me angry. That's okay, right? But how I deal with it, I have to train myself to deal with it. I have to train myself so that I'm better for the next kid who might be having a garbage day, right? I have to make sure that I keep my emotions in check so I don't set anybody else's emotions off, right? So sometimes it's as simple as taking a walk. Go get some water. Water, it's the miracle of life. But water, it calms you down. It calms your nerves down. It helps you get back to breathing right. So sometimes I'll just look at them. I'll just say, go get some water.
The other thing I do with my students is I say, go find some unproductive time. When they were really stressed and you're online, I said, next Monday for 90 minutes is unproductive time. That's what we're doing. No lecture. I want you to do something unproductive. And before class on Wednesday, I want you to post your unproductivity and what did you do? I think that's really important. And the weather's nice. And, I think music is important. You can listen to a song and it'll make you cry. Or you can listen to a song and it'll make you dance. So this is a time to go find that summer song or that music that makes you want to dance. And yeah, Diamond, putting you in the right place.
I think a lot of these students are definitely feeling isolated. And that is, isolation it's like, I'm not sure exactly where it lies, but it's a huge indicator of like health. And so I think it's really important right now. I mean, connectivity and the ability for our students to get access and to connect with their friends is vital, and it should be a right. The fact that all of our students don't have access to technology is unfortunate and not fair. And so it is really important. And we tell our youth all the time, to get outside. Some of our students are sleeping way more. There's definitely signs of depression, because isolation, this no one has gone through this before. No one could have prepared for what's happening right now. But we're trying to find ways for students to connect offline, whether they're social distancing. Some students are working on a garden right now. The Tremont Youth Council is working on a garden, so they're social distancing gardening right now, and that's definitely been something. But some of our students are even struggling to get out of bed to begin with because of this isolation and lack of access to their friends. And so, as educators and all of us, it's just really important to provide them opportunities to be online with us when they can, but also find ways that they can interact with their communities while social distancing, and still feel connected to their friends in some capacity.
Yeah, this whole virus was a huge shakeup, and the biggest thing was the stability. lack of routine. And so now, like, I would joke with my students that 3 a.m. became the new midnight. Like, we completely shifted our schedule. We're sleeping at different times, and it is difficult, especially when some of our students come to school for that space, for that peace of mind. And I know that a lot of our students have to take on that role of watching siblings, helping out a lot more. So they lose their freedom, they lose their independence, they lose their personal space a little bit. So how do we encourage, to find those relationships again, or to build those relationships, and get a little bit of the seclusion? I mean, because the weather is nice, I encourage walks, going for runs. For some of our students, I think that they need to feel those relationships. Don't just text, FaceTime, right? Because we need that interaction. We need to see each other's faces. We need to see each other's emotions. We need to hear each other's voices. And just even as a teacher, I check in with my students. I call them. We watch a movie sometimes together. We'll play game night together. I'm trying to find ways to engage and interact, even though we have to social distance.
And people are hungry in organizations too. All the parents and people that have had to go work at home. And I want to thank Katie. People hear social distance. What we're really asking you to do is physical distance, but social connection. And so my kids have compromised. They go out with a mask now. And they said, we're just going to meet at the park. We'll stay 6 feet and we'll wear our mask. And then, of course, I'll hand them some hand wipes too. But it's we're all experiencing this. And you're right. You have to socially connect, but physically distance for a while. We will find a cure for this. And this will only be for a while.
And I encourage my students, like this, I mean, you don't have to come to the classroom. So there's so many things that you can do, right? They always say, like, I'm never going to use this. I'm never going to learn this. Why do we go to school, right? Now's that time to explore things that you actually want to explore. Take up a new skill that you actually want to learn about, you want to try. And I have seen our students engage so much more by having these open conversations, having these, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on this? And they have become little activists during this pandemic. They are, Miss Lorek, did you see this? Miss Lorek, look at this. They are on it.
Diamond, I'm actually curious to hear from you. Have you lost contact with some of your friends because they don't have access to internet or devices? I'd be interested to hear your experience there.
Some of my friends I have, not many, but just a few, and it affects us, But I would say we connect through school because they'll be fine, go over a family member's house. And we'll get on Zoom like this, and while we're in school, so we saw each other. But I would definitely say during this pandemic, I am one of them teenagers that felt isolated, or I didn't get no personal space because I'm the oldest of 5, so I didn't have school to escape to. But every time I would get on Zoom meetings, my English teacher, she'll be like, make sure you go take a walk after you get off this meeting. Make sure you go outside, get some fresh air, go drink some water, go read a book, So I think that definitely helps. And then, like, I'll tell my friends, like, okay, read a book, go outside, social distance. Like right now, I go see my friends, okay, wear the mask, let's say 6 feet apart, let's walk off to the park, So it definitely takes a toll on us, but
I think EYEJ has been doing more research about the digital divide. As our program has gone online, we are focusing on connectivity and the access to technology. And recently we've done some research, and I think it's 40% of students from CMSD do not have access to Wi-Fi and brand Wi-Fi. Broadband Wi-Fi, and so 40%, that's almost half of our student body. And a lot of students that were getting some of the technology when they were finishing up school, like some iPads and stuff, have gotten them taken away since school finished. So now we're into the summer, and these kids do not have, 40%. That's unacceptable. And we're seeing that, Diamond spoke on it some, and we're seeing that definitely with our ability to access the students, especially the students in need who need that 1 hour, twice a week for themselves that they're not getting.
So imagine this. I learned about SWOT when I was 19 years old. I was working in a computer software firm. I was an intern, and it stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. And so it was an analytical tool is what my boss taught me. And I found that when people talked about weaknesses and threats, it kind of sucked the life out of them. Their energy went down, and there was like no creativity in the room. And they just, so you go from strengths to weaknesses, and so you kind of suck some life out of them. And they had no energy to talk about opportunities, and then they could talk about the threats in the world. And that's what I learned. And I was 21 years old, and I took my capstone class in a business school, and I learned about SWOT. And SWOT's a tool from the 1950s, and it's an analytical tool, and it works. But I thought, how do we get people into being innovative, creative, inspired? It's not weaknesses and threats. It goes back to everything we talked about, the mindset that if you take strengths and opportunities, and we've been having a conversation these last 40 minutes, and you talk about what you really care about, aspirations and your hopes and your wishes, we're going to see results. And my dissertation is like 300 pages. None of you will read it, but I wrote a little thin book that people would understand that SOAR is a mindset. And the science, as Katie and Brady brought up, the science is there that if you start from a place of strength, anything is possible. Anything is. And, at an individual level, imagine if you thought, what am I good at? What's possible? An opportunity. What do I care deeply about? What do I really want to do? And the other thing I kept hearing in conversations was you want your teachers as mentors. Who are the trusted advisors? For Diamond, we know it's her mother, and I think you mentioned an English teacher, but who are your trusted advisors that can have a conversation worth having with you about what's possible? And think of the metaphor. Would you rather soar or SWAT? I think you guys want to soar. And that's, it is, it's just, it took a lot of research to figure this out, but it's at the end of the day, capital YOUTH. It's about you, and the TH to me stands for the future. And that's why spend time on your walks and listening, but what's your purpose? What's your strategy? I mean, I use it in organizations all over the world, but I also use it at the level of me.
The conversation needs to be started. Like, we need to be talking about, like, how do you feel right now that this is happening? How do you feel about your emotions? What are your thoughts? It needs to be brought up, because a lot of times it's not. Nobody talks about it. It's quiet. It's a secret, whatever you want to say. So I just feel like it needs to be started, and then it can move forward from there.
So I think that Diamond, absolutely, like that is 100% where it has to start. But I do think that, when we think about like SOAR, which is a great framework, that's actually what we use with our YODJ students, thanks to Jackie. And we think about the strengths, and we talk about the identity, and then we start talking about opportunities. This is where this, the social justice component really comes in. So, okay, so what opportunities do you have when you're living in poverty, with food deserts, with lack of adequate housing? Oh, you don't have any opportunities. It's like, okay, well, we're here to fight for your equal opportunities. And secondly, you're just gonna have to get a little more creative, which is unfortunate, but you're gonna still keep trucking along and getting the access that you need. And so, I mean, moving on to aspiration, like, these students have incredible dreams, but when they've been failed before, when they have empty promises, when teachers aren't following through, or they're not getting the job that they're completely qualified for because of the color of their skin. Does that mean they can't have a positive mindset? Absolutely not. But it means that it's going to take more resilience, and it's going to take conversations like Diamond is talking about more often with more people in a broader space than just here. And, it needs to start happening in neighborhoods, in communities, in schools, and at large.
I want to echo that the world is in a difficult place right now. The whole world is dealing with COVID. This is not a U.S. issue, COVID-19. And the world is dealing with systemic racism like never before. These are difficult times. But you have a choice to develop a positive mindset or not. And I don't know if you ever heard of Simon Sinek. And he said, optimism is about being in a dark tunnel and seeing the light. And you're not focused in the darkness and all the bad around. You've got to focus on the light. And Diamond, I'm going to go back to the issue you had in your social studies. At first, you didn't see the light, but remember, a positive mental attitude and being optimistic, it's not about the denial of the current state our world is in, but more darkness and negativity isn't going to see you through. And that's what you have to know, that you got to keep moving towards that light, or ask somebody to show me the light. And that's, I think, is really important. And I believe a positive mental attitude, a mindset, will move you into that light.
I've, had a hard time with this one because I am white, and the majority of my students are people of color. And so it's really hard for me, as I might not have had the same experience, to say, you know what, let's just be positive, right? It's a hard switch to just turn on and just demand and say, you know what, you're really kind of bringing the mood down. You got to switch it up, right? So it's my job, one, as a teacher, to prepare my students for the future, but to be a champion for my student, first and foremost, right? I don't care if you can't find it, put a comma in the right spot. Like that's a later thing. My job is to make sure that you grow as a person and you find your place and you find your voice. And so my classroom, or English, is just a vessel, just to open up those conversations, open up the communication line, and poke at the things that we see a problem with. And if we talk about it, if we shed light on all the issues that we're coming up with or that we're noticing, and more than one person notices it, it's an issue. And so how are we going to have those conversations to fix or solve those issues? What little steps can we do, right? As a teacher, I can't change the world all by myself, right? I can't demand change in all these aspects, but what little things can we control? What things can we push for? Finding those resources, right? You mentioned having a mentor, right? I might, if your future is to go into accounting, I'm bad with numbers. I'm still counting on my fingers, right? But I might know somebody who can guide you in that right path, right? Having those conversations, opening up about what you are thinking about for your future, I can help connect you to certain people, right? If we use our network and we use the privilege that we have, we can build those connections, right? But being able to open up conversation about the issues that we are seeing is a big step in working towards solving them, right? If we don't address the issue, if we don't acknowledge the problems that we're having, how are we going to work towards that? But giving the platform to students to use their voice, I mean, that's what we do with EYEJ. They come up with some pretty amazing things. They can talk your ear off. They know what they want. They know what they want to see. And they ask great questions. So creating that space to generate those thoughts and generate those questions is a amazing start. So I might not have all the answers, but if we can start talking, we might get somewhere.
Diamond, thank you for participating in today's program. My apologies if the question was already covered, but you seem so positive. How do you support your peers so that they are well-rounded like you? And what are your professional goals? I could see you working to uplift kids.
Actually, my profession, I want to work with babies. I want to be a nurse. Okay, little kids, pediatrics, stuff like that. Also, okay, so how I uplift my peers and my friends, stuff like that. I guess you could say the advice that I get to them. But even if I don't get advice, I always try to be positive because I know what it's like to be in a negative headspace, and I don't want nobody else to be in a negative headspace. I don't want nobody else to experience what I haven't experienced. So I just try to be the best friend, the best peer I can be, and encourage them with everything in their life, whether it's like a really, really small, minor thing or something that's really big. And that's what I do.
What are some positive habits that reinforce a positive mindset? And how can young people incorporate them into their daily lives? Simple things that you would recommend.
All right, I got one for you. Everybody brush their teeth? What you guys do. So at the end of the day, I would recommend as you're brushing your teeth to ask yourself, how well did I lead myself today? And what can I do better tomorrow? And be grateful that there is a tomorrow, because you will go negative. You will have a deficit spiral. Something will go wrong. But, you know, before you lay yourself down to sleep, brush your teeth at night, just kind of ask generative questions. And when you find yourself in a negative place, what assumptions am I making? Why don't I, we text and we Snapchat and we do all this. Why don't I pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them, how are they doing? Did I do something wrong? What can I do? But yeah, sometimes pick up the phone.
So when you speak positivity to yourself, to your friends, to your family, to your siblings, to adults too, it can manifest in a physical way, something that you can touch, you can see, whether that be like, okay, you're going to do great, you're going to get A on this test, or you're going to, for example, my mom like, you're going to be that nurse, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that. My siblings, you want to play basketball, you're a basketball player, okay, keep practicing. Be positive, speaking into existence, it really makes a difference, because it affects the whole atmosphere.
Energy, like we kind of talked about this in the beginning, but who you surround yourself with, and we talk a lot about that with our students. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Is it people who also have positive mindsets? Is it good energy and good vibes? And so that's always helpful when you're feeling down, or you're choosing to not necessarily have a great mindset. If you're around people that have that vibe, it's a lot harder to want to be negative.
One key point, I would say, okay, of course, I said speak stuff into existence. Also, like Miss Katie Ross said, it's who you surround yourself with. And even your environment, if it's not the best, environment that you live in or you're in, try to find out one person that you can always be around, that can be positive, that can uplift you, because that'll really, change you. You will see the light at the end of the tunnel. If you have somebody there with you that sees it too, just like my mom was there for me, just try to find out one person. That's what I would say.
I think my one takeaway is kind of from more of an educator society perspective, in that we have to work harder and not failing our students, because we're making it a whole lot harder for them to have a positive mindset if we're falling short as a society and as educators. So I think it's really just reflecting on what we can do, and not really pointing our fingers at all the students to fix this and fix that and have a better mindset. Like, what can we do in our control that can make the situation environment better for the students, that will allow them to more easily have a positive mindset.
And I would advise, especially, don't always rush to save someone or give them the answer or give them a solution. Take time to ask a question that can spark their curiosity, because you're in control of your own destiny. And, I was looking up the word humankind. So we're all humankind, and you hear the word human, but what about kindness? In the end, kindness wins, and it doesn't cost you guys anything. So no matter how difficult the situation is, asking questions and being kind is for free.
Right. And Brady?
I'm always looking at from an educator perspective, and making sure that the spaces that we create for our students is anti-racist, making sure that we're practicing abolitionist teaching. I mean, I love Bettina Love. If you haven't followed her, read her book, she's amazing. But the idea of creating that space that is culturally relevant for our students and giving them the space to talk about the current issues, or talking about the things that are weighing on them, and giving them that space to cultivate their thoughts and problem solve and critical thinking. If we open up that conversation, and not focus necessarily on, these are the problems. This is everything that's wrong with what's going on. We can find those problems, no problem. We are very good at saying no. We are very good at finding issues with everything. That's why most of our food critics are always going to be things that are wrong with the restaurant, rather than, hey, this is a great place to eat, right? But when we think about the problems, okay, but now what can we do about solving this? Or what is one step we might be able to take in solving this? And that's not just about, social, racial, global issues, but that's just our day-to-day things, right? When we're reacting and responding to a negative situation, right? I didn't like that they did this. How can I think of the long-term goal of what do I want out of this? Do I still want this person to be my friend? Or do I just want to yell at them, right? What do I want to get out of our exchange at the end of the day, right? Are we trying to fix things, or are we just having a vent session and just yelling at each other, right? Finding and thinking of your long-term goals, and ask those generative questions on how can I solve, or how can I walk myself through this, or think from the opposite perspective.